This is K-Rockcast, the podcast where music and perspectives collide.
I'm Anne, a music lover who's the ultimate fan.
And I'm Kelly, a professional musician. Join us as we dive into the world of the Rose and other Korean and Asian rock bands.
Sometimes we'll agree, sometimes we'll wildly disagree, but what's guaranteed is a passionate, hilarious, and unfiltered conversation about the music that unites us and the bands that inspire us.
On today's show, Sam, can we just keep it on for a while? I mean, I've seen his nipples more often than I've seen my own.
Hey everybody, welcome back. This is episode 29, Into the Trauma. Kelly, I'm excited because we've kind of taken a break from our deep dive into music. Like we've been doing these
Yeah,
other types of episodes, which are fun and
they
giving
are.
our listeners and viewers something different. But I have to admit, I kind of missed our music deep dives.
I
So
know.
I'm excited to go back.
Yeah.
We are digging into a really deep song. I think this is going to lead to some rich discussions between us today. The song Trauma, which was released from the Rose's documentary film, The Rose Come Back to Me. So that's what we're covering today. But before we jump into that, as always, Kelly has some great artist recommendations. So Kelly, why don't you kick us off?
Right, so for a change, I've gone one completely underground. So I very much doubt you will have
Ooh,
possibly heard of either of these acts because I'm doing two today. And we're repping the ladies. So we have two
that's right.
female, yeah, we have two female fronted bands. And I think we desperately need this. So these are two indie bands as well. So the first one I'm going to bring to your attention is a band called Meejah. And Meejah are Korean Danish. Let's have
Ooh.
a good old mix on that one. And they are a post rock band. I love these guys. First time I listened to their new album, I actually cried. I will admit it.
Mm.
Musically, sonically, it is stunning. So the band is composed of May Son Young, Alverson, Daniel Neiberg, and Andreas Isbrat Lofskold. And then there's Asger Sorensen and Emil Lake joining them when they perform live. So recorded wise, they are just a three-piece, but live you will always see additional members on the stage. And when you hear them, you will understand why. They mix experimental, post-rock, post-metal, trip-hop, and shoegaze. So I don't really know how to explain them to you. So if you imagine some of the more developed grunge bands, and then
Mm.
somebody like Radiohead, and then you throw in some of the great trip hop UK acts, if you put some of those in the place as well, because that's such a unique sound. It's a very British sound, so it's quite unusual to hear other bands picking it up. And then the other thing that they do is they throw in this really beautiful traditional undercurrent of Korean instruments and sensibilities as well.
Ooh.
So
Oh, I
the
love
debut,
that. It sounds
yeah,
like
is
a very unique sonically,
on
very unique sound coming out of
it,
them.
it's kind of eerie, but beautiful eerie, if you get what I
Mm.
mean. There's something about it that just sings to your soul. So their debut album was Queen of Spring. And as I said, it's possibly one of the most beautiful albums I've listened to in years. It's
Mm.
gentle, it's moving. My God, it's powerful. It's really powerful. It's something that you have to put on and you need to pay it attention. And it's not you need to pay it attention because it's difficult to listen to. You are drawn into it. You are pushed into this sonic sort of world that you want to listen to. And it just draws you in and sucks you in, and you can't help it. You, if literally if you have like 35 minutes, put a pair of headphones on and listen to it. It's stunning. So the Queen of Spring is a cycle through the 8 trigrams of Korean philosophy. So it includes heaven, thunder, mountain, earth, wind, fire, water, and lake. This album's grandiose, but not in a
Mm.
inaccessible way, in a
Mhm.
beautiful way. It's kind of like looking at an old master's painting. It's that you look at it and you can see true life in it and the reflection of true life and feelings and vulnerability. Oh, yeah, seriously, Meejah, go and give them a listen.
Oh,
They
wow.
are absolutely stunning. They've just been playing gigs in Korea. Obviously, they're from Europe.
Oh, that's
Um,
great.
it's, it's great. So they do tour in Europe, and I'm 100% sure as well. I think they'll be heading over to the States at some point. So there is a chance
Oh, that's
that most of
exciting.
us,
Good for
if you
them.
enjoy this, will get to see them. So yeah, definitely check them out.
Yeah.
Amazing. And by the way, Maya has a beautiful voice. Absolutely beautiful voice.
Yeah.
It's haunting. So definitely worth a listen. And then my second band is a band called Veins. And Veins are a Korean alternative rock band formed in 2009. Completely indie, completely independent, female fronted, heavy leanings of grunge and garage. So if you sort of think this is like Hole, Babes in Toyland, L7, that type of thing. And then you throw in sort of like the more modern sort of garage stuff like White Stripes and all of those type of things. It's fun. It's loud, it's raucous, it's fun, and you will, I can promise you, you will enjoy this stuff. So the band is made up of Yuhi, and she has the most wonderful rasp to her voice. She is one of
Oh.
those proper like grunge singers. So she harks
Mm.
back very much to like the 1990s singers. So you can hear Courtney Love in there. You can hear Cat Bellland in there from Babies in Toyland. And when I heard her, I was just like, oh yeah, she's amazing. She harks back to like the true definition of girl power. I'm not talking about the thing from the UK that like to think. I'm talking about proper girl power. So you have
Mm.
Yuhi on vocals, Wonbei Lee on drums, Hee Min Yang on bass, Juwon Yi on guitar, and they honestly, I've seen some of the footage of them playing live. They're great. I can't wait to. And the
Mm.
problem is though, again, they're one of these Korean bands that never get out of Korea or Japan. So I can't wait
Mm.
till I can get my arse over to Seoul and literally go and see them play in some of these, wonderful grungy venues that are down back alleys in Hongdae, things like that. Not the type of Hongdae or
Yeah.
you lot know. We're actually referring to the sort of proper grimy music side of it as well. So there's a couple of tracks I think you really ought to check out. So there's a track called Sean, fantastic. It is so, so good. And then Gory as well. So that's another amazing track and worth checking out. Both got fantastic grooves to them, power, but there's also a vulnerability within them as well. It tells a story. You can understand where it's all coming from. And then lastly, and we can't forget, you need to check out one of their EPs, and it's called Glass Tower. It is fabulous. It's
Mm.
such a good EP. And yeah, so they're two recommendations for today. Two very different
Two
things. They're
great
both,
ones.
yeah, both female fronted, both independent. They are both rock bands, but two very different ones. We've got one that's very sort of meaningful, grandiose, will literally give you goosebumps. It will give you goosebumps listening to it. It is just beautiful and stimulating and gorgeous. And then you've got Veins, who are the other side of it. You want to put it on Smash Things Up. They're great.
Yeah. Yeah. I like this idea of you and I doing this like trip to Korea, taking K-Rock cast on the
It's going.
street, out in the
It's
streets of Hyundai,
it's happening.
doing
It is
these like
go.
live, yeah, we gotta find all these bands, we do these live recommendations. I love this idea.
Well, I mean, I don't know if people have actually noticed. So obviously, anybody on Instagram will be aware that we have K Rock on Instagram, and Anne, bless her, posts daily, and you will see all sorts of amazing content coming out there. But we've also started another page, which is K Rock Recommends, and K Rock Recommends is where I am cataloguing a serious amount of amazing Asian talent, and the mass majority
Yeah.
of them are all independent underground acts that you will never have heard of. A lot of them have only just started out. They are playing the small clubs, they're playing to 50, 60 people. There is everything in there, from very sort of laid back indie, verging on blues and jazz type artists. We go through to like the more pop, the more polished, the sort of the more studio fed stuff. And then we'll go to the other end of the extreme. We also have in there a selection of metalcore bands, death metal bands, and things like that. And we also have some fantastic electronic artists as well, because as you know, a girl loves a drum and bass. And if you want to check out something new, go on there. And I will be posting little reels every now and again and various updates from some really amazing bands that you should be checking out.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a great plug. So again, listeners, that's our new Instagram channel, at K-Rock Recommends. All right, let's jump into our deep dive, Kelly. As I mentioned kind of at the top of the episode, we're going to be covering the Roses song Trauma. This song was released as a digital single by The Rose on August 28th, 2025. It was included in the credits at the end of their
Yeah.
documentary film, The Rose Come Back to Me. So when I saw this for the first time at the Tribeca Film Festival, I remember being there watching the end credits, and I'm overwhelmed by what I saw in the film, just thinking through everything. And then I realized I was hearing something. And I was hearing Sammy's voice and Dojun's voice, but it was not a song I
No.
knew. And it was like I was so overwhelmed with the emotion of the film that it didn't really register to me. And in that moment,
Yeah.
this was a song we all had never heard. And then I at least had the wherewithal to scour the end credits as they're running in front of me, and I see the name of the song. And so we knew the name was Trauma. I think I even mentioned that
Yeah, you
within
did.
our
Yeah.
Into the Tribeca
Yeah, you did.
episode. Um, and I didn't know when it would be released. So this was kind of interesting in terms of them releasing this. I feel like kind of leading up to them being at Busan,
Mm-hmm.
film festival. Now we have more and more of these film festival screenings being announced. Now they were
Yeah.
acquired for theatrical release in 2026. So I guess they kind of felt like the time was right to start putting this song out as part of the
Yeah.
larger promotion of the film. The song was composed by The Rose, arranged by The Rose, performed by The Rose. Piano is Park Do-jun and Choi Moon-suk. Strings are Phil String. Here's our man Phil back again.
Yeah.
Who's this guy? We got to find Phil.
You need to find
Because
Phil.
listeners, if you remember his name, he was credited on the World album on the
Yeah.
song Oh. So the strings on the song Oh. And then it was produced by our man Park Do-jun, of course. I have a clip that I'm going to play for everyone of the performance at the Busan International Film Festival.
Deep down and down and down, deep down inside, I realized I was traumatized. When you're down and down and down, you tend to hide.
All right, Kelly, let's start with your analysis of the instrumentation and the melody.
Yeah, it's all right. I'm still gone after watching that. It's a truly beautiful song. It really is, but obviously we'll get into that as we go. So it's in E major and it is 123 beats per minute. It does have similarities to artists that they obviously take inspiration from. I was going to say emulate, take inspiration from. And there is very definitely hints of similarities with another song, different tempo, different chord structure, but it's got a similar feel and flow to The Scientist, which is no bad thing, because that is a beautiful song. It's a very traditional Rose song. It has very strong leanings of what they have done before. It is very much them. There are some really beautiful, clever bits in this. There are some of the most beautiful bits of vocal work in it that I've actually heard them do. The reason that I was a bit sort of pausing after the video is the Dojuni has truly beautiful little hints of his voice in this track, and Sam has that section where it's kind of a bit of a bridge, go to the outro, and it has that bit of overdrive, and that bit of overdrive, oh, that is one, it's hard to do. That's why you don't hear many singers do it. And two, it's just magnificent. And it really drives home the push of the emotion. It's that final cry as such. But yeah, it's beautiful. And I'm really impressed with it. And one of the things I do love, and actually I didn't notice it the first time I listened to it, and it was Matt, my drummer, that pointed it out. And he'd listened to it and he messaged me and he was like, ooh, woo! And I was like, what do you mean, ooh? And he was just like, well,
Ooh.
yeah, no, I mean, initially he was just like, yeah, it's a beautiful song. They're doing what they do. Da, 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 da. And then he messaged me back a little bit later and he just went, Kelly, there's a no cadence ending on this. And I was like, I'd not
What does
even
that mean?
realised. Yeah, so your brain automatically is transfixed into, you will naturally have like a decaying cadence at the end of a song. So it doesn't finish where you expect it to finish. Your brain wants to go, ooh, there should be another chord there, and there isn't. So it sort of goes, normally you'd expect it to be like, dun, dun, dun. And it isn't. It just goes, dun, dun. And you're like, hold on a minute, you've left it unended. Where's it gone? Where's it gone? Which actually puts you on edge. It's very clever. It's very, very clever. And some of the best songs out there are written in that way. You will note it. I don't want to mention it, but there's a certain anime that has come out of Korea via Sony that has a very big song in it, which is full of no cadence, and it leaves you on that hook. So your brain automatically wants things to sort of come to completion, and it doesn't, and it leaves it half finished, and then clicks into the end. So it's clever. It's clever. Well, yeah, very well done with that one.
Yeah. I love you pointing out and Matt, pointing this out, because I think it's another example. We have talked about this in at least 3 to 4 of their songs where they will replicate, complement, not sure what's the right word I need to use, but what they do in the melody is also what they're doing in the lyrics.
Yes.
And to me, what I'm kind of hearing you say, we haven't even gotten, obviously to the lyrics yet, but, this is a song that evokes such emotion, such empathy. And, the theme of it, not to jump ahead too much, to me is so around trauma is always with us.
Yeah.
we never get over it.
No, you learn to
We
deal with
work
it.
past it.
Yeah.
We deal with it, but
Yeah.
it's never over, and I feel like what you're kind of explaining in the lack of the cadence is, like, there's no ending, maybe.
No,
You're
there's no
waiting for
full
that
stop.
ending, that wrap up, that
Yeah.
pretty bow that's gotten put on
Yeah.
something, and that isn't life,
No.
you know? So, again, I just love how they do that so much in their music. It's so creative.
Yeah. I don't know whether it was done with intent and purpose or whether it was just like, no, let's just end it
Mm.
here. But no, it is a very clever trick to do because it also what you tend to happen is you listen to it and it doesn't finish, so you have to go back and listen to it again. And that's why
Mm.
there's
Mm.
lots of 4, 5, and 6-year-olds hooked on a certain song from a certain anime at the moment, and they're all singing it, and every single band in the world's doing a version of it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. For me, my notes, I just was grabbed by the simplicity of the song
Yeah.
on the outside. And I think a lot of, World was like that in
Mm.
terms of our analysis of a lot of those songs. While something seems simplistic in terms of, to me, the melody is a piano and strings.
Yes.
Um, and it seems so simple on the outside. It's a beautiful melody, and it is similar in how we explained the melody in ILY on the Into the Void episode, where
Yeah.
the focus is really the lyrics. Like, the focus are
Yes.
the vocal delivery and what they're saying in the message in the song, but the melody, while there's simplicity to it, it is so beautifully done, and it conjures to me the emotion they want to bring out in their
Mm.
listener, throughout the song. It builds, it's like a slow build.
Mm.
I feel through the melody. I like that, the strings don't really come in till about 1 minute, and then
Yeah.
they kind of drive like through the chorus. um there's this string melody, Kelly, at about a minute 45. It's kind of melancholy. It's a lower sounding stringed instrument. I don't know my stringed instruments probably as well as you do. I'm not sure if it's like a
It's
cello
cello.
or
It's cello.
yeah.
It's not double bass, it's cello.
Yeah, it's really, really hauntingly beautiful.
I'm a cello
Very
girl. I
beautiful.
do love a cello. That is why I'm obsessed with Apocalyptica, but that's a different conversation. It's a very different conversation.
And then I'm with you on the vocal delivery by both Dojun and Sammy on this song. I feel like when I was watching the film and I was just listening to it for the first time, that was something that did jump out to me right away. I felt like sonically their vocals sounded different on this song than maybe we
Yeah.
had really heard from them in the past.
Yeah.
Um,
It's the
mm,
delivery, and delivery is the most important thing because at the end of the day you're telling a story, and
mhm,
you can't tell a story about trauma and all of the things that have led to trauma and realizations and pain and anguish without replicating that in the voice, because you wouldn't
mm,
believe it. It wouldn't. I mean, it's like an actor playing a role. If you don't
mhm,
develop the role in a way, people aren't going to believe it. They're not going to buy into it. So you can't sing a song like Trauma with a smile on your face. It has to be
right.
done with a level of emotional depth. And that is the reason it cuts through so much. This is, as I said, there's that bit where Sammy goes into the overdrive in his voice, which is basically a howl of pain, and it's that push up,
Yeah,
and you get that really beautiful arc in his voice, which is fantastic. And we don't hear it very often because a lot of the time he's in his falsetto range, but because he's in his chest range and he's pushed it through, you get this power behind it. And oh, that's
yeah.
beautiful. That is
I
so
mean,
beautiful. It's stunning.
it's some of his best vocal work
Yeah,
that I've
without a
heard.
shadow of a doubt. Yeah, definitely. But saying
Yeah.
that, it's also some of Do Junior's best vocal work as well, because there are hints of
Yeah.
lines and you can hear vulnerability in it. I don't think we normally hear a lot of vulnerability in Leo's voice. Leo is
Mhm.
quite a straightforward singer, and I think he seems
Mhm.
to have got in touch, especially on World. He seems to have developed this sort of way to allow himself to freely push his emotions forward when he's singing. And that might be, as silly as it sounds, there's a huge difference between being in a studio with a producer and a sound engineer and half your band and, you know, everybody else. I mean, a lot of the times, if you're in a studio, the minimum you will normally have in there is two or three people. And to be able to get vulnerable is really hard to do. Really, really hard to do because you literally have to lay yourself bare. We know that Dojun has done a lot of World on his own, and a lot of it
Mhm.
was just with the guys. There was very few people involved with this. It was mainly him. I think he's actually completely isolated himself to sing the guide tracks and then realized actually how he sings the guide tracks is actually how he should be singing. So I think it's allowed him to develop that style of his part of his voice a lot more.
Mhm.
And it's beautiful because it now gives him a
Yeah.
different tonality as well. And you can hear it in this song. There's certain words and it just peaks and it's like there's a little
Yeah, I mean,
reed
let's
of
talk about this
something. It's stunning.
bridge. This
Oh God, yes.
bridge is incredible.
Absolutely stunning.
Uh,
It really is.
yeah. Yeah, and this part in the bridge where Dojun has those powerful vocals, and then when he sings "Understand,"
Mm.
then in the production, they added this kind of echo onto that, which is
Yeah.
so haunting.
So
It's
what
great.
most yeah, so what most people don't realize is when you record vocals, it's not just one take and you're done. You don't just record your voice once. What will happen is you record it a minimum of 3 times, and that's so you can pan the voice. So when you are mixing vocals, the best way to describe it is if you're sat in your car, because that's normally gives you the best sound because you've got surround speakers. So you've got speakers in front and speakers at the side and speakers at the back, and they will place certain instruments in certain places, but the voice sits at the front and pans outwards. So you get a wider, and you can't do that with just one take. So you need that ridge of sound that pans outwards. Um, and with this, there's definitely more than 3 takes that have been layered on top. And then with that, I think I don't know whether it's an echo. I'd need to listen to it with headphones on half a dozen times very, very loudly to pick it out. But it might just be the fact that what they've done is how they've actually separated those layers and treated. They may have
Okay.
just put a treatment on one
Yeah.
of the bottom layers just to give it that sort of bigger ridge that it's sort of, so instead of it being like a thin line, it's sort of like they puff it up so it sounds fuller and more distant. But I mean, I need to sit with headphones on and really really like dive into it.
This is why we need Dojun on the podcast.
We
Oh my god, I
do.
would love to dig in to all of these, like, background details with him.
Yeah,
To be like, "What? Tell us how you did this part. Tell us how you created this."
I mean
I
seriously,
feel like he would love to talk about it.
mouth trumpet. Who in the world would think
Yes!
I'm going to make a noise on this single that I would have probably done as a 4 year old, and my mum would have been going, "Shut up! Shut up! I've had enough! Shut up!" But no,
I
I'm going to put it on a
know,
single,
and
and it sounds great.
so since we're talking about his genius as a scientist, as Sammy likes to call him, in production, Dojun, we had the pleasure. Dojun shared on his Instagram account some behind the scenes of the strings production. So we have that for our listeners and viewers. Let's play that clip now. loved seeing behind the scenes and seeing him at work. It was so fun.
Yeah, you can actually see and hear him pulling and dragging the notes. So you can hear it. You can hear the string go whoop as he's moving it up a note and down a note and just rearranging it. Which is why obviously it's called string arranging. Basically, it is arranging the notes and putting it in the right place. But yeah, that's beautiful. So I mean, we're saying it was a cello. I mean, it could have all been played on violin and literally just dropped down registers as well. So I mean, it could all be treatment. But
Oh,
I would have
that's
probably
true.
said that it was cello. But it literally depends.
Mm.
It's, there are also some very, very, very clever pieces of software out there that replicate strings and replicate strings very, very well. Because we use them. We use them in Spectral because we can't. I mean, we're very lucky. We do know some exceptionally good violinists and cellists, but we can't afford to pay them. So we ended up using freely admit it. We ended up using like going down the software route to replicate a lot of the string sounds that we use. And it's a similar way. It's just a sound bank. Put the notes in, and you drag and drop them where you want them to be, and alter pitch and shift and things like that to create that sound. So, yeah, it's
Hey,
interesting. It's nice to see.
maybe Spectral gets a little bit bigger. You can get Phil String on. You never know.
Well, I mean, we could do, but I do, as I said, we do know people. We do know smaller orchestras that we could drag along if need be.
I feel like we need to vet Phil String. Maybe he'll come on the podcast, talk to us. I
Well,
just
yeah,
love
yeah,
his name,
there's
by the
that.
way.
I know that's it. You're just
Like, do
obsessed
we
with that.
think that's like his legitimate name, or do we think that's what his like entertainment name
I think
is?
that might be his
Come on.
entertainment name, in the same way that JJ's surname definitely isn't Catalyst. I'm just
Oh my
putting it
God, you're
out there.
shattering all of my
Oh, yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah. Mr.
shattering
and
my
Mrs. Catalyst
naivete.
had little JJ Catalyst.
All right. Well, Kelly, why don't you kind of go into something that we learned from Sammy about this song at the Busan Film
Yeah,
Festival?
so one of the things that did actually come out during the sort of Q&A section, during the performance part of the screening, was the fact that the song Trauma was actually written while they were writing Heal. Now, hearing that, I'm not surprised. I think it would have probably been the basic premise of the song, so it would have been the original harmonies and the lyrics, and then obviously they've gone in, re-recorded it, and then expanded on that re-recording. And obviously, with that time, it allows that greater expansion of the song, which is why we've got this really beautiful song now. And they said that even though they wanted it to be on Heel and it didn't quite make the cut, there was a reason it didn't make the cut, and it's because it was meant to be on this documentary. And actually, it makes perfect sense. I can see where they're coming from with that. It was some form of divine intervention.
Yeah, we have that great clip for our viewers and listeners. I'm going to play for that right now.
Song Trauma, we wrote when we wrote the album Heal, but it didn't make it to the album, but we think that it was meant to be in this documentary. And also, like we always say, trauma, you can't fully get over traumas, in our opinion. However, we believe that you could learn and you could not get over it, but live with your traumas as you go on. And we believe that music really helps with those small processes. So that's why we do music. And the song we're about to sing is about that. And we will sing it now.
I really like that clip because I like some of the things that we learned. And I always love learning like new kind of little tidbits of it makes so much more sense now that this song was written at the time of Heal.
Mm.
In terms of the message of the song, it fits so well into that era of
Yes.
heal and healing, healing through music. But also that are, like we said this kind of at the top of the, part when we were talking about the melody, but the message really being that we never really heal from these traumas. We
No.
work through them, we deal with them. But they do always stay with
Yeah.
us. One of the things that I feel like is an example of that is literally there's some fan cams that floated around of this performance focused on Taegyum. Did you see any of those,
I
Kelly?
did. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So viewers and listeners, if any of you saw them, um they he was moved during visibly emotionally moved
Mm.
during the performance. And so I just feel like whether he, again, the song takes him to some place,
Yes.
he's just overcome through that emotion, which it did for so many listeners. I know I heard from a lot of listeners of the Rose that the first time they heard this song, it hit them hard.
Mm.
Like it hits you really hard. And I think that's from what emotion the melody conjures, but then from the message in the lyrics.
Can I freely admit I listened to the first 10 seconds and turned it off?
Mm,
Had to go back to it.
wow.
Yeah. I mean, I'd obviously heard it in LA. I'd heard,
Mm-hmm.
because it was quite funny because we were sat in the cinema. Obviously, Anne and our friend Anna that was with us had both seen it before in New York, and I was sort of sat there, and then it was like the credits came up, and then everybody started talking, and I was like, "Shh, I'm listening, I'm listening."
Yeah.
So obviously, I knew what was coming, um, but I remember. So if it's something I really want to listen to, I always put my headphones on so I can get that breadth of sound. And I put my headphones on and was obviously laid in bed. It would have been ridiculous o'clock in the morning because it's always ridiculous o'clock in the morning for me when these things get released. And I literally listened to it and I thought, I can't listen to it yet. It's too early for me to listen to this. And I had to go back to it a bit later and listen to it in its entirety. And that's the music. That's before we even get to the lyrics and the delivery and the meaning and the depth and everything else. That was quite literally just the emotive pacing of the music. But when you get on to the lyrics, it's a whole different thing. And I think
Yeah.
everybody can relate in one form or
Yeah.
another. Whether you have experienced huge traumatic traumas in your life, multiple traumas that have scarred you from a child, or traumas that have scarred you as an adult. Everybody goes through these things. It's universal. And I think that is the reason it's had such a huge impact with everybody. Um,
Mm.
and then put on top of that the delivery, and then you're like, oh, okay, just bloody kill us now. Just I'll lay down and play dead.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
more.
Oh, I
I can
know.
take no
I
more.
know. I know. It's like rip your heart out. It
Oh,
just,
it's
yeah.
proper. It is proper bleeding heart on a sleeve stuff. It is. It's
Mhm.
as emo as you can emo get. And I am part emo. It is definitely in there. I will admit. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm a great big pile of mush. Anyway, I may have a veneer that people seem to think, but no, no, I am a mush ball underneath it all. And
Mhm.
Anne knows this well. um, and Yeah, it is so beautifully, beautifully written. The lyrics feel like they were pained over. And by that, I mean painstakingly looked at and developed because they knew there was a message that they needed to get across. But in saying that, there's also part of me that actually thinks this might have just been an outpouring. And it's an outpouring that was regurgitated onto a piece of paper or into a phone notes or whatever, however Sammy decided to write it at the time. And then I think what they've done is they've clinically gone through it and cleansed it as a group. And but
Mm,
I don't think we're too far removed from the original intention and the original meaning of the
mm,
lyrics either. I think pretty much
mm.
what is in the song now was what was in the song when it was originally written. It feels very much like a diary
Yeah,
entry. There's lines in there
yeah.
that are the type of lines that a songwriter gets when you are walking around and then this line just comes into your head and you go, I need to remember that. And you write it down. And you don't know what that
Mm,
line is for, but at some point it regurgitates and comes out as something else. And there's certain lines in there, sort of like, I'm at the age now that you were then. Things like that are lines that you have as rehearsed conversations with people. It feels very much like there's rehearsed conversations in there. I don't know if it's just me.
mm,
I'm terrible at that. I am an overthinker. I will freely admit it. I know some people aren't, and they don't understand this. Yes, folks, I am a whack job. But I will freely
mm,
admit I will rehearse conversations in my head that never even happen. Um, don't need to happen, but sometimes my brain just needs that to function and process. And a lot of the lines that are in this song feel like they are delivered in a very similar way. It feels like that
mhm,
rehearsed conversation with the person that caused the trauma in a way. But yeah,
mhm.
absolutely beautiful lyrics.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is how this he's just such a master. I know I say this a lot about
Yeah,
him, but
stop blowing his bloody trumpet. Mind you, we're not allowed to say that, are we? In English, that is a perfectly fine concept to say, but obviously, we know you're a smut peddler and we know the shit he comes out with. So please
you're
just
trying to
disregard
put
that
the sus
statement.
content.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly, yeah.
I think what he achieved to me in this song is what I interpret, and again, I don't know what his true inspiration was when he wrote it, but I don't know how to say this. This is a very personal song
Mm, yeah,
that I think is about a very personal thing that
yes.
happened in his life, but yet he's able to write a very personal song that also achieves universal relatability,
Hmm.
and the listener can see themselves in a very personal situation. And
Yes.
I just think that's an amazing feat. Um and I just am always fascinated by how he achieves that. I think he wrote this learning that it was written at the time of Heal, and I mentioned this I think in Into the Love Bomb, as well as I've put this out on Instagram. When I first learned this tidbit, I went immediately back to the Zach Sang interview that the
Mm,
Rose did in 2012 during their time of promotion of Heal.
yeah.
And he talked in that interview that part of their process for writing Heal was digging back up all the childhood traumas.
Yeah.
And I think this was one. that he dug up. I think he dug it up. I think he faced it for the first time in his life. And I think his way to work through that was writing this song.
Yeah.
But yeah, the beauty of this song being saved for this film is, while it could be, if I'm, my thought is correct, a very personal story in his life, it also still reflects a major theme of the documentary film in the group trauma they went through with dealing with, everything with Jay and Star Company that occurred, and the scars that left on them as individuals, and then residual scars as a band. And so, yeah, it's amazing that it can be a song that can be so personal, but also resonate across and have applicability and relatability across, anyone.
Yeah. Oh yeah, completely. And I think that's why they're all moved by it. You can see it when it was performed. I mean, it may just have been an accumulation of the day and everything that they'd gone through to get to that point. That was sat on that stage after the film had been premiered in Korea, was the peak of the mountain. And I think it was the peak of the mountain, not just for the band, but the entire production team and everybody else. That was the peak. There are going to be a lot of other peaks following. I can tell you that now. There are going to be a lot more peaks. But that was their personal peak. That was their personal point that they'd got to get to and achieve. So I think that was one of the reasons that they were all so heavily moved. But I think it's also the fact that it's their shared trauma. And all bands will tell you, all decent bands will tell you, they all have a shared trauma, whether it's a laughable shared trauma or whether it's a truly horrendous shared trauma. I mean, I recently shared with you an interview with Linkin Park, and they underwent a very, very similar thing to what the guys went through with their record label, and Chester Bennington being the absolute just wonderful soul that he was, when he was poached to basically be the front man, the lead, to be a solo artist and everything else. They basically wanted to push Mike out. They didn't want any rapping. They didn't want Linkin Park to be Linkin Park. They just wanted Chester at the front and everybody else to be backing artists. And Chester, God rest his wonderful little soul, just basically turned around and told them to fuck off. And that's how Linkin Park were Linkin Park. But as a band, they have been through horrendous traumas together, and losing Chester is one of them. And that's how they can write truly emotional music as well, in the same way that the guys can write really beautiful, emotional works too. And I think that's when you get the better bands, when there is a shared trauma. It's horrible to say, but when there is that balance and shared trauma, when you've all been through something, when you've all either lost somebody that you care about, or you've been through something that forms you as people, or you've been through stresses, that allows you to create music like this. And that is why a lot of other acts fail, because they can't tap in to that trauma, to that vulnerability. And when you can tap into that, that's when you achieve a level of greatness. And again, this harks back to the fact of, in my mind, the guys need to get their arses in gear, because this could catapult them. But yeah,
What you're saying kind of makes me think of something Sammy shared on the second day screening Q&A. So this was kind of a little bit of a surprise. I
yeah,
didn't think they were coming out again on the second day. They didn't perform, but they did have a Q&A. And I think this was a journalist, not a fan
yeah,
asking questions. I think these were journalists. They asked about the lyrics, and they asked him specifically about the meaning of the lyrics. In true Sammy fashion, he never likes to tell you what the song is specifically about. He'll never do that. So he did not want to open up and say
mm,
specifically what the song was about, but he said that sometimes they write from very personal experiences, sometimes they pull from outside
yeah,
sources. But their main focus is always going to be telling a story through their music and creating empathy
yeah,
as much as possible and connecting with their listener. And that's what
yeah,
I feel like this song to me achieves, that empathy piece so
yeah.
well.
It does.
Um, yeah,
It's relatability
yeah,
again. It is
yeah,
purely relatability, and that is that's the hallmark. I mean, yeah, they have a
it is,
sound,
it is.
but actually,
Mhm.
the actual hallmark of the Rose is that level of
Yeah,
vulnerability, and the fact that it's relatable vulnerability as well. Um,
yeah,
but vulnerability doesn't always have to be sad. Vulnerability can
yeah,
sometimes be other forms of vulnerability as well. So to
yeah.
me, that is actually part of the development that I see coming down the line, that they will
Mm.
start to realize actually you can be vulnerable about other things as well, not just trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna go into a set of lyrics that are my favorite. And you kind of mentioned this lyric, I think, just a moment
Yeah,
ago, but the lyrics are: through the years, I fought to move on, tearing down the walls that shaped my soul, found the pieces I gave away. Now I'm fully in bloom. And now I'm near the age you were. I truly understand.
mm,
Let's break these down, Kelly. One of the things I noticed was we talked about this throughout the World album, and also in the Black Rose breakdown. They love to use common language that they've used
yeah,
all throughout, kind of their discography, which I love, like things like Shaped My Soul. I thought of Pieces of My Soul from Nebula, found the pieces I gave away, right? That's
yeah,
that connection back to Nebula. In Bloom, that
yeah,
whole piece there,
yeah.
connecting back. I loved that. What's your thought on this set of lyrics?
I think it's a really beautiful set of lyrics, and I think it tells the entire story, to be honest. That's why, as a
Mhm.
bridge bit, it works so brilliantly because you get how to describe this? It's kind of like a reintroductory to the next series, and you always get a
Mm.
playback. And this is the playback, and this is like
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
we're going to condense the entire part of the song into just literally these 6 lines, so you know what exactly it is, and we're going to stick it on the bridge so it builds and it's going to hit you around the face, and you're going to go, oh, I know what this is about now before it takes you out,
Mhm.
and that's clever because it reiterates the song. But these are really beautiful lyrics, and because it's in the language and it's in this lucid language that Sammy tends to use, um, and it's a shorthand. As silly as that sounds, every songwriter has a shorthand. Some
Mhm.
writers have the ability to write in different moods and genres and perspectives, but they are people like David Bowie. They are the masters that can turn on different parts of their psyche to become different individuals, and that's why you'll notice that David Bowie, through his entire career, became different people. Every album was a different person because it was in a different voice. And that's how he used different language. Whereas Sammy has a vernacular that he uses, but it's an understandable and interpretable vernacular that everybody understands, and they know that that is what he's going to do. It's a very poetical language,
Oh yeah.
which is beautiful. Which is beautiful. I mean, it harks back to it's Wordsworth. It's that type of poetical language, which he probably doesn't have a fucking clue about, to be perfectly honest. When if I start saying, you know, it's mid-century classicist British poetry, but it is there. It does hark very much to that area. But there is also a tenderness to everything that he writes. So with this, it's that sort of stanza of lyrics is it's the look. I fucking fought really hard to get over this, and I'm not going to get over this, but I've managed to move past it, and I'm now who I am. But by realizing who I am, it has become a learnt lesson, and I can look
Yeah.
back at you as an individual and think, shit, what were you going through at the time to inflict this on another person? And it's that understanding and it's that compassion towards another person. And that is actually, that's, I think, why it hits so hard, that bridge section, because it isn't just me first and the gimme gimmes. It's not my pain, my suffering. It is,
Yeah.
I have my pain, I understand my pain, I've moved past my pain, I now understand why you were in pain. And that is
Right.
beautiful, and it is mature, and it is emotionally developed, and you very
Right.
rarely get that type of writing.
Yeah.
A lot
Yeah.
of vulnerable writing is very much from the perspective of I,
Yeah.
me. Sometimes you get it from the perspective of when somebody's trying to be clever and they'll do it from the perspective of you. But it's very rare that the bridge will be used to flip the perspective.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, they
clever.
did that in She's in the Rain.
They did, but not to this extent. This
Yeah,
is
not to this extent,
not
but
not to
they
this extent
moved
because
perspectives
this is
in that song.
this is a forced moved perspective, and if you actually listen to the music at this point, that's why you also get that instilled difference in the delivery of Dojuni's singing as well. So you go from it being a very sort of confident stamp of this is me, this is who I am, this is where I am, and then it flips and it becomes a sort of it's a more quiet, reluctant understanding, and you can hear the empathy. I know you very much like the way he sings the term understand, because that's
Yeah,
it.
I love that
And
part.
that is the tagline of the entire song. That one,
Yeah.
understand. And again, harking
Yeah.
back to empathy and compassion and everything else. And it's beautiful.
Yeah. I think this is the part that gets me the most for all the reasons, you just
Yeah.
articulated so well. And I think this understanding comes with age, to be
Yeah.
honest. I think
Yeah.
when you're in, and I mean age as in time needs to pass
Yeah.
from the trauma. I
Yeah.
think you can't have this level of empathy and understanding too close to when the traumas
No, you can't.
occurred. But I think true transcendence comes when you can take that step back and say, I'm now near the age you were. I have a different perspective than when I was in the trauma, right? Which
Yeah.
obviously was when I was much younger. And now I'm seeing things through a different lens.
Mm.
I have a different understanding, and I can put myself maybe in your shoes, of the decisions you had to make or what you were going through.
Yeah.
And as you kind of said, that you're in just as much pain through this experience that I was. And the pain, it probably caused you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think again, his writing is so powerful. The imagery, the poetry he conjures with his words, it always amazes me. It also made me think back to several other songs. I think one was Take Me Down.
Yeah.
I really thought a lot back to some
Yeah.
of the lyrics like lonely you are, completely overgrown your scars, deep tattoo, my mistake that is completely carved into my mind. I think again where I was connecting back to those lyrics that they wrote, it was around trauma. It was around how that trauma leaves a tattoo and a scar that
Yeah.
might fade with
Yeah.
time, but it never really like
Never leaves
goes
you.
away.
Never leaves you.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I also even went back to his solo song Lonely.
Yeah.
Where when we were breaking kind of some of the meaning down in that song, which we felt like was a meandering of his thoughts, we connected that song back to Take Me Down and some of these common themes of trauma
Yeah.
and what he's been kind of dealing with throughout his entire life of abandonment and what this early abandonment in his life did for him in terms
Mm.
of the impact it's had on him throughout his entire
Yeah.
life, and that he is continually on this journey to work through that and deal with that
Yeah.
and so forth. So I love that. Again, I think we've said this before in previous episodes, it's this kind of character writing, that he does and the Rose does, and that
Mhm.
you can connect these themes throughout a lot of their music, which goes back to kind of this familiarity, as you said, this
Yeah.
hallmark, this, it's what, if you're a fan of their music, it's what you'll gravitate,
Yeah.
to, and kind of pulls you in. And I think this song is just another example of that.
It is. And I mean, I'm sort of thinking, stupid as it sounds, I'm thinking back to some of my own work. And I was
Mhm.
thinking back to a song that I wrote when I was in my early 20s. And one of the lines in that was, "It will be forever under carpet swept." And that was me freely admitting that I would hide traumas. I didn't want to speak
Mm,
about traumas. I would push them away. So I can understand this sort of case of wanting to lift the carpet up and push out the traumas and, get rid of them. And it's not obviously until I've later on in life that I've had the ability to be more vulnerable, and to be more
mm,
open and live and and put the light into these situations, which is what this is. um and whether or not this is written from a truly personal point, or whether it is a personal point and collective trauma, and it's bundled together to create this big grey mass of just horribleness, they have had the ability through words, delivery, and the music to shed light on it and to open it up. And by
mm,
doing that, it allows other people to look at their own vulnerabilities and their own traumas.
mm.
And that's why it's hit so hard. And yeah, well done, guys. And I have said it
Yeah.
before and I will say it again. God damn you, Kim Woo Sung. God damn you for writing such beautiful fucking lyrics. Um, but yeah, it's brilliant.
Another piece I think that complemented the song really well was the music video. Why don't you take us in a little highlights of that, Kelly?
The official music video came out on August 28th, at the same time that the actual single was released. And the music video incorporates clips from the documentary, but it also has some new clips which were filmed by, I believe, by Jack. And they are in the studio while they're recording vocals. So we get to see the very human delivery of some of this very painful, traumatic wording. And so you can understand how and why the delivery came out the way it did. And yeah, it's interesting to see it. It's a very simple video. A lot of it you will have already seen before. There are clips in there of bits and pieces that have been around for quite a while, but it works very well with the song, and it acts
Mhm.
as a lovely little gateway piece.
Yeah, I love the clips from the film. So if people had seen the film already, they recognize them. But it was
Mm.
also just kind of a nice addition if you hadn't been to a screening of the film. You got to see some of the clips that are shown within, and then
Yeah.
these beautifully shot. So shout out to Jack Vu there. He is their tour photographer. So many of you listeners probably are familiar with his photography work. It is absolutely beautiful. And so his videography work is just as well done. It's
Yeah.
shot in black and white, which and then the studio they were in felt like it was all like this wooden paneled studio. And so the coloring Jack used just added this richness and this
Mm.
intimacy of watching Sammy and Dojun record their vocals. I agree. Being able to see their delivery, see the emotion come through. I mean, I know we joke Sammy likes to be naked, but at some point the man took off his shirt. I don't know if it was hot in the studio or like why he felt he needed to be half naked while he was like delivering his vocals, but just that like I felt like it was this I'm getting caught up in the moment and I'm just like here and I'm just vulnerable and I'm just kind of raw. And so it was so kind of cool to just see all of that captured so
Well,
well.
so yeah, two things. When you are singing, you are singing with that amount of intensity and power, and you are in a padded room, because people, you sing in a padded room. You know, you don't get a straight jacket, but it's a padded room. It can be very, 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 very hot. So I will let him off with that. But yeah, I must admit, I mean, to be perfectly honest, Sam, can we just keep it on for a while? I mean, I've seen his nipples more often than I've seen my own. It's ridiculous.
I
I
feel
mean,
like
it's
the
like,
man
come
needs
on.
did he not understand there's something called like an undershirt that you can have under these hoodies? Like you don't have to be like bare chested under every hoodie that you wear. So that when you get hot, Sam, you take it off. You're not half naked. You got a t-shirt or a wife beater on, not
Yeah,
your bare
yeah.
nipples.
He's not worked out the concept of layering, or in fact, buttons. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but well done
Anyway,
to Jack. I think this video was just like to me it kind of extended the emotion that this song brings. Then then you have a visual representation to me
you,
of that
you
and it
do.
just kind of all fit so well
Yeah,
together. So
yeah,
well
you do.
done
And
to Jack.
yeah, and Jack's sort of editorial of it, and the fact that he did it as a black and white as well. I mean, it literally, I mean, black and white is it's truth. It is raw. It
Mhm.
is art at its naked form. That's why we have black and white photography, because it's seen as its pure form as such. Um, and that resonates very much with the song. So, I mean, that was a very good choice, because, I mean, if it was lurid and bright and everything else, it just wouldn't have the same
Yeah.
impact that it does as a black and white piece of work.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the song Trauma. This is another excellent song by The Rose, so be sure to be streaming it. Excited to see how it continues to maybe be performed as The Rose
Yeah,
continues to promote the documentary film as
yeah.
they go along. I'm sure this is going to be an addition in future set lists within,
I
any
would have
future
thought.
tours that they have. It's an excellent song.
Yeah, I think I think they've built a rod for their own back. I think they're probably going to have to perform this one, whether they want to or not. It's coming out again.
All right, let's move into our humor segment, Kelly. So I've got another scenario based humor segment this time. Now, imagine you have to pull off the best prank ever, and you need help pulling this off. Now, I know you like to do everything all by yourself, and you don't think anybody can ever help you do anything, but you have to
What
pick
do you
someone
mean?
who you think.
What
No,
do
it's
you
so true.
mean?
It's so
What
true.
do you mean?
But you got to pick someone who's going to help you with this prank out of the Rose. Which member of the Rose are you going to choose and why?
Oh, can I not do it myself?
No, no, no. You need a partner in crime. Who's your partner in crime?
I need a partner in crime. Do I really need a
Mm-hmm.
partner in crime? Perfect
Yes.
getaway if you've not got a partner in crime. You can get away with it all.
So then pick a
Okay.
sneaky partner in crime.
A sneaky partner. I'll put my teeth in and say that again. A sneaky partner in crime. I
Yeah.
don't.
Who do we think's
Right.
good at
Okay.
pranking?
Right. Let's think about this. So Tay, I think Tay he's got a sneaky side. It's not
Oh,
there
he
out on
does.
display, but he does have a sneaky side. And
He does. We say that about him a lot.
I think he is still plotting revenge for stuff that happened 5 years ago. It's just not come to fruition. It will. So that I think
Yeah,
that's been.
he's definitely plotting his revenge on all the shit they've been giving him in the Once Upon a World tour for his car and the car diffuser.
Oh yeah, this. I mean, it might take
Yeah.
another 4 years to come out, but he will get
Yeah.
there. He will have his
Yeah.
revenge. I think is it something to
Yeah,
do with
that's
being a
true.
scorpion? I think it might be. It's just like I will have my
Maybe.
revenge. Right. Okay. So Tay might be a good one. Now we know Hajuni. He likes the sneak attack,
Yeah, he
but
does.
it's very dry, and I
Mm.
kind of think he would enjoy doing something like that. So
Mhm.
okay, I think that's a possibility as well. Then we've got Sam. Now, for sheer shits and giggles, it would be funny because we know that Sam likes to get in trouble. So
Mhm.
that'd be
He
funny. That'd
does.
be quite entertaining. However, Sam has one drastic flaw. He doesn't have a poker face, so he is likely to burst
Mm.
out laughing and give it away early. We
That's
know that.
true.
And there's also the fact the man is the spoiler king, so
Mhm.
so you'd have to include him in your plans, but then have a work around the plans if it all went pear shaped, or how we should describe it properly if it all went Wusung shape. Um, which I think might
Yeah.
now be a correct terminology. Everything's just gone Wusung. And then of course we have Dojun. Dojun is a chaos magnet. And
Yeah.
actually, whose
Mhm.
birthday was it? I can't remember whose birthday it was. And it would have been back in I think it was the Re Rose You tour. I remember seeing the video of this. And he pulled a stunt where he passed out on stage just so they could sort of
Ah.
stage a birthday cake being brought on. I think it was Tay's birthday. I want to say it was Tay's birthday. And he did it so perfectly. It was so miraculously done. And I know for a fact that Sam nearly cracked half a dozen times during that. But Dojuni kept his speed up all the way through. So actually, there are points with all four of them where I think they could be fellow troublemakers. So who would you go with?
Yeah, so I kind of like your analysis. I think I can't pick Sammy because I do not have a poker face and I can't keep a secret at all.
I do. I have a poker
I'm
face.
like, we don't need the two of us together because it'll be like, we'll be like snickering in the corner before the prank even happens and it'll be all ruined.
I say I don't have a poker face when I am up to shit. I have a proper poker face. I have a really good resting bitch face.
No. Yeah, I don't. So I think I can't. Sammy and I are too much alike like that. So we won't be a good pair. I feel like I'm in between Hajun and Dojun because I feel like Hajun would have all these like really creative like prank things that he would do.
He'd have good plans.
Yeah, I feel like he would have all these really good plans. But there would be probably a little more like silent, daggers that come out. Where Dojun is this like I do kind of remember what you were saying, this content. Like I feel like I have seen that before.
Yeah.
So I'm like, he's a good actor. Maybe he could counterbalance me well and help hide my like wanting to like say, we've got a prank we're gonna do. Like I feel like I always like to spoil everything too. Yeah. So maybe I'm gonna go with Dojun. I feel like he'll balance. I always pick him in these situations.
Yeah, you always pick him.
I feel like he and I would be. I do pick Dojun the most.
You always do.
Because I feel like he and I do. I think he and I are a good like balance for some reason. Yeah, I don't know.
You probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah.
So how about you? If I was going to play a prank on somebody, I like long goal pranks. So my prank, because I'm malicious. There is part of me that is a Disney villain if you've not worked this out.
So who are you going, Tae or Hajun then? I feel like it's one of those two then.
It's Tae.
Yeah.
Because I think between the two of us we could pull off something that was quite masterful and a little evil.
I think so too, right?
I've now got the ultimate prank plan in my head, but I will spill it because it's just pure fucking genius. We could make the old fart of the band think he was shrinking. I've suddenly got the twits in my head, so I don't know if anybody has ever read Roald Dahl's The Twits, which is a fantastic book. And there's a bit in it where the married couple are trying to like get one-upmanship on each other. And one of my favourite bits is when Mr. Twit decides that he's going to make Mrs. Twit think that she's shrinking. So he goes around every night and just saws off the bottom of the chair. The temptation, literally, just to sort of like do. So he'd shrink certain things and then he'd make things bigger by just adding bits underneath it so her feet wouldn't touch the floor. Oh my god, the temptation to do something like that. It'd take forever, but it was so worth it.
And I could see Tae doing that with you out of all the other members.
He would enjoy that so much.
Yeah, he would enjoy the long game prank that isn't obvious right away of what you're doing, but just he's like in the background, just like
Great.
loving seeing the person interact or like be like, what's happening with
It's
this?
like, I
You
have
know,
no,
like
honestly, yeah. I must admit, I am, if people haven't worked this one out yet, and I'm probably letting myself slip a little bit here, I'm very good at playing dumb when I need to. Very, very good at playing dumb when I need to. So I don't need to do resting bitch face sometimes. I mean, mine literally like, honestly, I really don't know what you mean. Seriously. We might have to look into that.
oh my
Mm.
gosh, that's hysterical. Or I feel like Dojin and I will just come with some big in your face, like loud prank right there. Like bam. And then it's
Yeah,
done.
yeah. Well, I have been involved with some pranks in my time, but seeing as I still know the people, they don't know I was involved with it to this day. So I'm not going to admit him on air. But I'll
I've
tell
never,
you
this
off
is me
air.
a good this is me the goody two shoes. I've never actually done a prank. I've
I've
never
only done
I've
a,
never done
I've only done a few.
I know, I've never done it. Yeah. I never
I've
wanted
only
to
done
get
a
in
few.
trouble, but
Hey,
all right, listeners and viewers, tell us who you would pick. You got to pull off the best prank ever. Which member of the Rose are you going to pick to help you do it? Join us next time. Our deep dive is finally going to be digging into the Once Upon a World tour. Kelly and I had a great opportunity to go to some of the shows, and there's so much about this tour and this concert that we want to talk about with all of you. So be on the lookout for that future episode. Please rate our podcast, leave us comments about this episode and our show in general. We love to hear your feedback. Follow us on social media. Across social media, Instagram, TikTok, X, and YouTube, we are at KROK_cast all across the board.
Click here to subscribe.
Email us at krock.cast@gmail.com. Check out our website, krockcast.com. And don't forget, join us on Patreon, become a member for access to things like exclusive content. We have some fun videos that we record. There might be bloopers or behind the scenes content that we share only with our Patreon members. We also have virtual hangouts, future merchandise for K-Rock Cast, and much, much more. So check us out on Patreon. All right, everybody. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
bye.